I know. We say that what? It's a master mashakas b'torah. He's a mekadesh v'tnai bottle. So the Ramban al kochin hay tnai kofu. What's he out to say? Well, it's interesting because also the lashon of Baalei HaTaisvus. Those who know there's a parallel in Taisvus. There's somewhat a parallel. It actually they diverge very strong. Thank you so much, David. Taisvus and Ksubis Nunvav also says the same thing. Taisvus and Ksubis Nunvav Amidal Vermasa Rezim Kudesh starts by Al Kochach b'the Kafle V'Tnoi Ayra. Same language. Definitely, we have to say there was a Tnai Kafel that he said, if this happens, this, and if not, it won't happen. The Amalei im Einlach Alai Shekshus V'Oina Read Mekudeshes im Lav Al Di Mekudeshes. So he said this explicitly. Now, what's this Al Kochach that he wants to say? This has to be so, because if not, why would you tell me that you're talking about a case where it's a problem because Masa Mashkas B'Teira, it doesn't work anyway because there's a Tnai Kafel. Now, why is he bringing this up? We will see soon. There's going to be a big difference between the Baalei HaTaisvus and the Ramban. We will soon notice the Ramban asks a double-layered question as opposed to the Baalei HaTaisvus and the Ri only ask a one-layered question. And this is really needed for that second layer, so he's building it up. I will explain this when we read this carefully. Let's start with the Al Kochach. Is it obvious that you need a Tnai Kafel here? Well, we all know, we've learned this already. We learned that the Dasa Ga'onim, the Rif, and the Rambam, is that when you say Al Menas, you don't need a Tnai Kafel. The Dasa Ga'onim, the Rif, and the Rambam. And the Rosh brings it down in the Simon Tess of Perik Vav of Gidnon, we learned that. Okay, we know that as a thing. We also know first that's found in the Rambam Hilchos Ishus in Perik Vav. We discussed this, and also in Gerushin, Perik Chesed and Perik Tess. And I will soon see those pieces again carefully. There's a machlekes whether when you said Al Manas, do you need to have a Tnai Kafel? Do you need to have all the Mishpatei Atnoim, or don't you have to have one? The idea is that the people who argue with the Goyim are the Ramban and the Rashba and the Baalei HaTaisvus. So obviously, when he says Al Kochach, we're talking about Tnai Kafel, he's warming up the engines. I would say, listen, this is clear that by this Al Manas you need the Tnai Kafel. Now let's try to understand. If we understand this is very important to understand. It continues the Ramban. What is the Shaila in front of us? How do we understand the Tnai of Al Manas? What does it really work? What are you doing here? So it starts with the Gemara in Kedushin. I mentioned it today. It was when we went to Meir Simcha a little bit. The Gemara, it's in your. I sent it to you on your phones. You should have it. The Gemara in Kedushin, Daf Samach Amid Aleph. The Gemara says in Masechtas Kedushin, Daf Samach Amid Aleph. Guys, dear Aaron, haven't seen you for a long time. Show your face. Come on, Aaron. And Mayor. Oh, hello. Thank you. Aaron, what do you look like today? What's that? Ah, I see him. Thank God. I have to see his face. He's got this unbelievable South African smile. How can you deprive me of that? Okay? You know, South Africans are happy people. Okay? You go to Soweto. They're constantly dancing, singing. You know, shoot you, they'll sing, but they sing and they butcher up cars, but they sing. You know, I was there at a Saturday night Kalmar slaughterhouse. Kidwell took me once there, and you know what I mean. And they were dancing. It's cool. Anyway, going back to here, the Gemara says in Daf Samach Amid Aleph in Kedushin, Ha'imrli Isha Riat Mekudeshes Li Amanash Yeten Lecha Matayim Zuz Harei Zeh Mekudeshes. Now there's a machlekes of Rav Huna and Rav Yeshua. And Rav Yehuda. Itmar, it was said, you have it, I sent it to you, you should know. Itmar, it was said, Rav Huna Amar Hu Yitain, she's Mekudesh, but he still has to give them a time zuz. Rav Yehuda Amar Likish Yitain, he'll be Mekudesh when he gives them a time zuz. Very simple. Okay, what's the machlekes? Machlekes, as Rashi says, we'll see soon in the Gemara, do we say, he said, Al Manas Ka'ema Mi Achshav Dami. Where's the nafkamina? So the Gemara continues and says, I'm going to skip 3 lines. My benayu, what is the difference? No, before that, I want to see the Rashi. Rashi says, Amar Rav Huna v'hu yitain. You see that first Rashi on the Gemara? The Kishiyitze, when he wants to give the Matayim Zuz, then he'll give it. The Kiddushin Chalal Mafreya, and the Kiddushin goes retroactive. So obviously you ask the question, how exactly does this work with this retroactive thing? Do you say, I suggest that we can have Shabbos retroactive after I have my partying, we start later. How does this work? Let's make this retroactive. Which halacha in Hilchos Tnoim creates Eila Mafreya? Have anybody bothered to, is this like a pasuk somewhere? Where do we get this idea of the Mafreya? Well, we're going to see in a minute. These pieces of Rashi. Umiyu Maida Rav Huna. Rav Huna is Maida. The im meis kaidem shenitno eina tzricha chlitza. Sharei lo kiem. No, it's very simple. What do we have to say? What do we say over here? It's very simple. He gave her a get, and he said, Amanas, that I will give you 200 zuz. And the man died before he got a chance to do it. Well, the Tnai was not Mekayim, because you can't exactly, when you're dead and buried, you can't exactly give them a time zuz. Now, what's the big chiddush? What's he out to? Thank you very much. What is Rashi out to tell me? You should know that if he died, obviously, can fulfill the Tnai. So we say that what? Well, if that's the case, it's a davar pashut that what? The Tnai wasn't fulfilled and the get doesn't work. What's the story? What does Rashi want? Okay, now think carefully. Why did Rashi have to say that the get doesn't work because the Tnai was fulfilled? Why you can't simply say the get can't work because when it's supposed to work, he's dead? Why can't dead people be begarish and isha? 2 reasons we learned. A, the dead man is dead and buried, cannot do a maisa gerushin. Eina meisim megarshin. We quoted a Rashi in Ksubas Beis Amid Beis, I remember. Okay? We also saw a Rashbam by us, who meis v'kover, he can't do a maisa mechira. And then there's another reason why you can't write a get or a shtar shikra after you're dead. Because by the time you're dead, then she's not married to you anymore. You can't make a chalais gerushin on an isha which isn't yours. The chalais doesn't work. By shtar shikra, I'm sorry, you want the shikra to be chal after you're dead. You don't own him then. The Yorshim own it. Rashi says that in Gittin. We saw that. I discussed this. So in other words, the reason you cannot give a get after death is 2. First of all, you can't do the maisa. Second of all, the chalais cannot be chal. So then I'll ask yourself the question. When Rashi said, if he dies before the milui atnai, the get cannot be chal lema freya. From when? From when? Whatever mafreya is. Why? Because he didn't fulfill the tnai. If without that problem, it can be chal post-mortem lemafreya. How can it be chal post-mortem lemafreya? Let's go further in the Gemara for a moment. The Gemara says, "My beinayu." What is the difference between Rav Yehuda and Rav Huna? It's a very important Gemara. Ike beinayu shepashta yada v'kibla kiddushin me'acher. She stretched out her hand and she received kiddushin from someone else before he fulfilled his t'nai. Before he fulfilled this t'nai, she got herself married to someone else. Kiddushin, even before the t'nai. Kiddushin is not typhus in this lady. There was no t'nai. At the moment that she married, she's divorced. The Chayrit says she's not Neshish. Rav Yehuda have a Kiddushin. What does it mean that Rav Yehuda have a Kiddushin? Okay, that's one nafkemina. The Gemara continues and says, "What's nach? My nafkemina, Amid Beis, Ike benayishin iskara haget o sha'avad." What happens if the get was torn or the get was lost at the time of the milui atnai? So we say, Rav Huna have a get, no problem. Why? Because it's lemafreya. Mashenki and according to Rav Yehuda, no, since it's only when is the Tnai Chal only after when he gives the when is the Ger Chal only when he gives the money, or that time there's no get. Now let's understand the thinking behind all this. Okay, let's understand. When I say there's basically three types of Tnai. Where is there a precedent in a halacha of a person necessitating that the Maisa Kiddushin or the Gerushin should be available at the time when the Tnai is fulfilled? Well, for example, if you make a Gerushin or Kiddushin, you just say, or et Megureshes ba'od shloshim yod. And that's what you say. It's Kovea Zman. It's a Rambam in Hilchos Gerushin Perek Tes. What you're doing basically is, what are you doing? You are saying my Maisa is not finished until that point of time. The Maisa didn't happen yet. It began, and let's just say you're stretching the Maisa. Interesting. You're stretching the Maisa, and what's the halacha there? The Rambam says you don't need a Tnai Kafel. First, by Kovea Zman, you don't need a Tnai Kafel. And there the halacha is that you need the get in her reshus at the time of when that Maisa finally finishes. Or if you gave Kedusha Kesef, you have to say that either the Kesef is there, or if not, there's a milba there. And that goes into a problem, why this milba works. If there's some kind of remnant of that. But Kedusha Bia, for example, won't work. Because, for example, if you made a king with Mashiach, it won't work. Because Kol Sakinyana, the act of Mashiach is finished. And therefore, Mamela, if you did Mashiach and you said, here's not doing a Mashiach, it should be Chal in 30 days. Kovea Zman, the dinners doesn't work. Kol Sakinyana, because your Maisa King isn't here anymore. And it has to be available when it finishes, so to speak. So that's the getter of a Tnai, which you're not dividing between the Maisa and the Chalois. You simply say it's a Tnai it's a din in the Maisa. The Maisa is not finished without, so to speak, until that time or that occurrence happens. If you study Bisman or even in a Maisa, it doesn't matter. You read the Rambam in Hilchos Gerushin Perek Tes, he's marchipah. And there you don't need it. It's called like a Tnai. Rambam said it's a Tnai and not a Tnai. It's like a Tnai because the Taka doesn't end until 30 days later. It's not a Tnai because you don't need negative Merubah. What's the difference? What's a Tnai? A Tnai is when the Maisa was done already. Just the Chalais ain't happening. A Tnai of Be'im. If I say Arat Nugrashli Im at Im Titnim at Zuz, then what happens is the Maisa Gerushin has been finished now. The Chalais of the Gerushin is not happening until you give me the Matayim Zuz. There the halacha is that once the Matayim Zuz kicks in, she doesn't have to get biyada. It doesn't have to be available because the Maisa was finished. The klal is when you make a regular Tnai of Be'im, what are you doing? You're cutting between the Maisa and the Chalois. That's what you're doing. The Maisa was done. Now, when is it going to be Chal? That's a Chiddush of Hilchos Noim, a big Chiddush of Hilchos Noim, that you can divide between a Maisa and a Chalois. The Maisa normally creates the Chalois immediately, and you're basically adding a factor. No, for the Chalois to be Chal, something has to happen. That's the din of Tnai Be'im, that you made a new din that you oiker the Chalois from the Maisa, and you're adding another factor. This Chalois needs something else for it to be Chal. Okay, that's fair. But the Maisa was done. So there's no reason for the get to be Kayim. If you made a Mashiach that way, it'll work. All right, you're buying this with Mashiach. Al-Manas, or Be'im, something will happen. The Mashiach will work. We won't say Kol Kinyana. We won't say, hey, there's no Maisa, because you don't need any more of the Maisa. The Maisa was done. When you didn't say Be'im, you just said, Hare, there, Kanui, Ba'od Shloshim Yoim. You didn't say Be'im. So we say what you mean, what your kavanah is that your mice is not finished yet. Now that's an interesting chiddush that alone seems to be mitzad svara, and you don't have a halacha of mishpatei atnoim at all. Rambam seems to be saying there's no din of mishpatei atnoim at all. It's shtikl mashma. You don't even learn it from Tnai. Not sure I understand what the svara is, how this works mitzad svara. Honestly, even a shear and das doesn't make too much sense. Who gives you the Bible to say that you gave the money? No, the mice still is floating there. Where'd you get this from? It's floating in the wind. Where do you get this from? Who empowers you to do this? To say that your action is the action finished. You put the ring on the finger. What more is this supposed to be doing? No. It's still, the answer, my friend, is blowing in the wind. In Mir Hashem, in 30 days from now, this will be called that it's on her finger. I understand. Does it make sense? Honestly, without a chiddush of Parshas Noam, I don't begin to understand that. Yet, but we see it's not that way. You see, a person can be kaveh l'shloshim yom, and the Rambam says before, it's not a t'nai. He doesn't say it's a t'nai which doesn't need t'nai kafel. He writes explicitly, it's not a t'nai. I raise it. T'nai ve'enoi t'nai. That's the lashon of the Rambam. If it's not a t'nai, what is it? But where do you learn it from? But that, whatever, I can't answer at the moment. I'm just pointing out a reality. That is what Rabbi Yehuda thinks every almanas is. Rabbi Yehuda thinks that every almanas, it's very important. This is Rabbi Yehuda, thinks that what is every almanas? Every almanas is like Kaveh equals every almanas is the equivalent of T'nai ve'enoi T'nai. Equals Hitaka thinks that every almanas does not need a T'nai kafel. Why? Because it's not a T'nai. The idea that you can say that a mice is protracted and continues, that seems to be something which doesn't need Parshas Noam. I repeat, I have the same question marks and exclamation marks that everybody else has. I don't understand the logic, but this is what the Gemara writes. The Gemara said that that's why in this case he has to be alive. The get has to be biyada. The Ma'asekin has to be there. It has to be in her rishus at that time. Where's the v'nosan? The answer is a protracted v'nosan. I'm the reason for it being in your rishus after 30 days. That's also called nesina. I am the reason that the Kalin Gilchus Gersh. You don't have to give it to her hand. You have to be the direct reason for her having it. For example, if you bring if the get is tied to your hip, and you bring yourself very close to her, allowing her finally to have it, without you getting yourself close to her, she couldn't reach it, that's also called the Nesina Gershon. Although she picks it up. Any idea, you being the direct reason for her accessibility to the get is called the Nesina. So if I need that the Nesina, when does the Nesina end? After Shleishim Yain. But how did that happen? By me giving it to her before the 30 days. That's called the Nesina Saget. This is the get of the Allah. What does it mean? It means a nice way of saying, until I gave it to you, until now it's like a pikadon. When will it be a gerushin after 30 days? This is the get of the Allah. I'm giving it to you now. I'm the reason you're having it. It will become that in 30 days. This seems to be as far. So the best you can explain, I'm just to the basement just a moment ago. I've given it to you, but it's not defined as gerushin until 30 days from now. Okay, so the Maisa to be called a Maisa gerushin takes only in 30 days will I define this as Maisa gerushin. This seems to be the idea behind this. This is almanas, every almanas, according to Rabbi Yehuda. Very important, the kuda here. Every almanas is that. It's the cheshon in the Maisa. Okay? It's not cheshon in chalois. It's not reforming the chalois. It's taking a different type of Maisa. This will be called a shiur in the Hagdoras HaMaisa. You're supposed to be Mavdir, your Maisa, say, I'm doing a Maisa Kedushin, I'm doing a Maisa Gerushin. No, I'm now giving it to a Maisa, giving you money, which will be defined Maisa Gerushin in a month from now. Who defines the Maisa Gerushin? Me. I'm saying I'm defining it in a month from now. At the moment, it has no Agdora. And Maisa without Agdora, it doesn't have Das. The Das of the Maisa, and to want to take Tzah. Okay, you're not mad to the Maisa. That's basically the halacha of Almanasa contribute, a very important thing. But since it's low halacha, I wouldn't spend too much time with it at the moment. I mean, it'd be a lot of fun for a shuk, that'd be very nice. How does distribute fit with other Deus Amarim? It could be very interesting, another reality there, but this is not what we're doing. Okay, so we go for a moment. So Rav Yehuda and Rav Huna argue on this. Rav Huna says, so that I understand. So how many Tloim are there according to this? There is Kayevel Izman, which is a shiur, or almanas according to Rabbi Yehuda, which is a shiur in the Agdoras Hamaisa. I have be'im, which is no, the mice is finished. But what? I've decided the chalois won't be chal until the tnai is mismala. Okay, and then there's the third thing, almanas according to Rav Huna. What's almanas according to Rav Huna? It's not be'im, it's almanas, it's mi'achshav. Now, how does this work, mi'achshav? Well, the Gemara says explicitly that according to Rav Huna, he can be, as far, Rashi writes, as far as, if not that it wouldn't be milah tnai, the fact that he's dead, we couldn't care less. The only problem with him dying is simply because then the tnai is not going to be fulfilled. That's all. If hypothetically that it was arranged for him to fulfill the tnai before he died, or he decided, or whatever it only be, it happened later, after his death. He said a shaliach. If the shliach is still chal. Okay, we're going into particulars. In principle, that's what I need. In principle, the fact that he's dead, we couldn't care less. What then if the get is burnt? It's not here anymore. We could care less. Now let's understand. When you say that you don't care if the get is burnt, destroyed, not in her rishus, officially that he's dead, what are you going to say? That means the Maisa was done already. Maisa was done. Now, what about when he said Almanas, it's mi'achshav? What about the chalois? Is the chalois chal already or the chalois chal later? So here it's very simple. You must understand. The reason that you can't do gerushin when you're dead is two reasons. First of all, no Maisa. Second of all, no chalois. And what does Rashi say in Rav Huna? That the only reason that you can't, that won't work post-mortem because the Tanai is not fulfilled. But as far as the fact that he's dead, it doesn't matter. Equals the Maisa was done already and the Chalais is Chal already. Because if you're going to say that Chalais wasn't Chal, don't tell me that you can't be Mekayish after you're dead because the Tanai is not fulfilled. You can't be Mekayish someday if she's excuse me. You have to be alive when this chalais happens. It's not, you're dead. And we learned before that there's two chisrainis in every gerish and misa. First, I ain't a mason megarshin. Second of all, because she's no more his wife. Also, take another step. It says mefurish in the Gemara, the according to Rav Huna, the kedushin is typhus in this lady. Why? B'shas kedushin, he didn't do the t'nai yet. So l'chayra, she's neshasish. I don't understand. If he does the t'nai, whatever you're going to say. Now, third of all, what does it mean lemafreya? Well, it all ends up to one thing. It means to say that a typical amanas means the ma'isa was done, and as much as the ma'isa is concerned, the chalais is also finished. But there's another t'nai. The t'nai says, I don't want this to have practical realization of halacha until something else happens. The t'nai is not in the ma'isa, not in the chalais, but the realization of the halacha. The reasons of the chiyuvim are all there. The realization of that, of those reasons, that waits. You know what the t'nai is? Not in the ma'isa, not in the chalais, but in the realization. Okay, now the chalais is chal. Do I become an eshes ish? Not yet. You have the siba of eshes ish is there. Elamai, I need something else to happen for that siba to realize itself. Where do we have an example for that? Shibudim. So we say lemafreyahu goiva because the reasons are there. You just have to realize it by collecting. Didn't we say that also by acharecha when we learned to go to Balamor? Didn't we say you have to ma'isa you read in a sada in order to have yours? You remember that? Well, here's the same thing happening. So basically, every almanas means as much as the ma'isa. I did everything I was supposed to do. I did the ma'isa. I did the chalois. Elamai, there's a guy that said that will not realize itself into practical reality. You will be called an Eishasish, and a Grusha, and all that, until something else happens. So there's a Tnai to divide Maisa with chalois. There's a Svara, not Tnai, to basically to designate that the Maisa is not a Maisa until after time. That's when you said Kaveh Azman. And the regular Tnai of Al Manas and Mi'achshav means to say you did the Maisa, you did the chalois, you can die now. As far as that's concerned, you can die. Who says you have to be alive when it's realized? As long as the reasons of her being the grusha you did, you were still there, she was still there, she's ish. I made her into a grusha. When does that realize itself? When does it sprout forward? It's like, I did all the planting, I did everything. Now you need shamim for the stuff to come out. It's okay. The shamim are that night. So the getter of an almanasa, when I say lemafreya, it doesn't some kind of sorcery over here. Well, it happens to lemafreya. How exactly? There's no pasuk. No pasuk. By shibudim, it's logical because we understand what it is. It's a mortgage right which realizes itself into collection. What do you have here which realizes itself later? So here also the mice is finished. The mice created a chalois which is a siba of issues. The issues is chal from that siba. When does the issues realize itself? When does the issues come out of that siba? When certain things happen. So here tonight is the cutter between the siba issues and the poil mamish of the issues. Siba issues is the chalois. What was chal? Now you have all the reasons to be an Eishes Ish. You're right, but you have the reasons to be an Eishes Ish. But the realizations of becoming an Eishes Ish, that I put a little slot there. So that's going to wait for a few minutes until something else happens. So you have a tonight to divide between mice and chalais. You have a tonight to basically be mavchim ben the chalais and the realization of that chalais. Okay, that's a very choshev and nakuda. That's almanas. Okay, Masha'en came when you say stam la'achar zman, that's not in matnai b'chval. But here's a major nafkamina. But achar zman, the nafkamina is you have to be alive. The kedushin, the star or the keser has to be in the rishus. You gave a get la'achar zman, the get has to be in the rishus after 30 days. By a regular t'nai, you don't need that. You don't need that for the chalais. You definitely don't need it for the realization of the chalais. He can be dead. That's what Rashi says over here. That he, according to Rav Huna, he's murdered. That he has to be alive only because of one thing, because you have to fulfill the T'nai. But without the idea of fulfilling the T'nai, we have no problem of him being dead. Why? Because he doesn't think that it's like Kaveh Azman, like Rav Yehuda. Rav Yehuda said that every Almanas is like Kaveh Azman. That means you didn't define the Maisa until that happens. He doesn't think so. He thinks this is it's done. It's a mi'achshav. What does it mean? It means everything is chal already, but the realize I did everything. Every mikash did. I did everything already. I can walk away. Now I added a little factor. When will this sprout, if we may say? When does it become into realization? Here I added a factor. Why do you think it's logical to be able to say you can cut between the mice and the chalais? And who said you can't cut between the chalais of the siba and the teitzah? Certain logic applies. There's no reason, just you're not used to it in language, that's all. There's no logical difference to say one yes and one no, except for the fact that you didn't hear it until now, that's all. But this is basically Mefurish in this Rashi. When Rashi writes that there's a chiddush, the only reason Rav Huna has a problem if he's dead is only because it's nice that miskai. What do I have here? Now, in this, there's the machlokes. Now, it becomes very interesting. So we pass on halacha like Rav Huna, except anything shayla. We pass on halacha like Rav Huna, and we pass on what does almanas mean? It means it's a t'nai. It is a t'nai. Okay, it's a din t'nai. Elamai, it's so to speak. It's not between the mice and the chalais. It's only being ma'akiv, the realization of the chalais. Do you need that guffle there or not? So the Ravid writes, as we saw in the Rosh and Perik Vav of Gittin Simon Tes, or the Amagid Mishnah brings it down also Bekitzer in Perik Tes Gerish and Alocha Yud Ches. You can look it up. Okay, he brings the Ravid there. That since this is not a t'nai of doing a big thing like cutting between the mice and the chalais, you don't need a tight couple. You don't need such a strong t'nai. He seems to be saying that the parshas of t'noim of t'nai are there to make it into a strong t'nai. Now, what does it mean by strong? More explicit, more direct. Probably following the thinking the Ramban brings the name of Rabbeinu Tam, that all the Pirtei halachas of t'naim are there to make a very clear statement. Okay, we need total clarity. That's the idea behind it. If you've learned your Ramban and saw Das Rabbeinu Tam, he explains that the getter behind all the halachas of t'nai kaf. Clarity. Okay, so I understand something which is really have to do a heavy job. Cutting a mice at the machalais, that's very heavy. But once you did everything, you just ma'akev when it should be realized. He's saying there's a machlekes rishonim. So the goyim had the Kabbalah that you don't need a tnai kafel here. That's what it says. The Russian, this is Kabbalah Sagoyim Iker. Okay? And they made the yukim from certain Mishnayos. If you want to learn the Rishonim of this, you can look it up. Rashba and Ramban don't think that those yukim are really the yukim. They totally wash away all those rayas. So therefore they say, no. With greatest respect, I don't have a strong logic to think there's such a thing. And since you don't have a siyur from the Gemara, they argue. They don't pass on the goyim. Pretty heavy. So this is a machlokes. No one is saying something which I heard from a certain Chad Migdolei, I thought it was that this is a Tnai Mitzad Asvara and not Negodu Bnei Ruven. I heard this from Reb Chaim Zichron Livracha, the Rashiva of Mir. He wanted to stick in Rambam that every Almanasa Me'achshiv, the Tnai Mitzad Asvara. It's a shear in the das, so you don't need to do like couple there. That Rambam doesn't say that at all. Okay? The only place where the Rambam says it is by Kovei Hazman. There he says it's not a Tnai. But it doesn't say anywhere the Almanas is not. That's a mistake. Okay? Zichron Livracha, it's pushed a mistake. Okay? No, I haven't found anywhere that says the Almanas is not learned from the God and the Reuven. The Lashon of the Rishonim is, but since it's not doing such a hard job, we don't need all the chumras of clarity. If you read the Ravid, that's what the Rush brings. That's the Emes Halacha and Rishonim. So that's what we have. So now when I look at Almanas, today, how do we pass? When I say, so the Ramban wants to clarify, brother dear, we don't pass in the Goinim. Yes, there is a din of Tnai Kafel. And where's the nafkamina? How do we perceive this Tnai at the moment? In light of what we just learned, what does he say when he says he's basically saying, I'm doing Kedushin, which Kedushin normally means to say, Share Kusvaina. I've done everything. I've done the Maisa, I've done the Chalais. I don't want it to be realized unless there's no Share Kusvaina. What chalais did you make? Remember, what's the t'nai? I'm doing, it's not a t'nai to reconfigure the Maisa. It's not a t'nai to reconfigure the chalais. It's a t'nai to be mi'akev from the chalais to the realization. That's how it just came out that the getter of this t'nai of Almanas. The raya is, at least according to Shittas Rashi, because hypothetically there's no problem with a dead man doing this also and getting it to forget after he's dead. I can't swear that all the Rishonim are going to agree to that. But they have a Rashi, okay? I just want to put this down. That's the stem of the Rashi. He has to say this Chiddush, the only reason a dead man won't work because there's not merely at night. Without that, there's no Chishon. And that same Rashi holds both things, that there's Chishon in the Maisa and Chishon in the Chalai. So he definitely learned that Al-Manas means to say this. You did your Maisa, you did your Chalai, you're not letting it come into realization. Okay? Well, if that's the case, the Maisa was done, the Chalai was done. Which means that, and that's not where the T'nai was holding. The T'nai was not changing the Chalais. The T'nai was not changing the Maisa. What was the T'nai doing? Not letting it realize itself. Okay? So far, so good, right? Not letting it realize itself. Remember this on the tape. It's going to be very important for the continuance of the Ramban. Also, we'll explain tonight what I said yesterday in Shir to understand. So that's all the T'nai is. So if this is a T'nai which creates a reality that the chalais is not chal to begin with. Bingo. That's what I said yesterday. I don't want a chalais with a chiyuv mammon. I want mekudeshi that the realization will only happen if I don't have a chiyuv mammon. But you made a kiddushin. You said you made a chalais. Yes, but this chalais will never realize itself with the chiyuv mammon. The Teretz says he thinks in the beginning that bechila will work. Hypothetically, to make sure that there won't be a chiyuv mammon as we discussed. That's how we said yado machal works. Mashenkin lo yado machal. That the mechil will only happen afterwards. Well, for goodness sakes, the chalais was already done. That's just the mechila to say the chalais is done, the chiyuv is chal, but afterwards you're going to be meichel. It's not what I wanted. I didn't want the chalais to happen. I didn't want the chiyuv to happen. This seems to be what we see. It's very important to remember. I'm saying it again. Al-Nanas means to say, I did my Maisa, I did my Chalais, I don't want the Chalais to realize itself in the practical halacha without a certain reality. That's a big yesod, a totally different tnai than anything we've had until now. In light of this, this is what the Ramban is inferring when he says, Al kochach hai tnai kofalhu. He's inferring, in other words, hey guys, not the Rif, not the Goinim, not the Rambam. This is tnai kofel. This is Shittas of Ramban, Rashba, and the Balei HaTosfos. The Eloi kafle, because if he didn't do a kifel setnai, loi hisna mashu loi, afilu loi hisna mashu kosevator, tnai ubatel, the tnai is batel. The tnai is annulled. Why? Because we need kidei could be called tnai shenik of nei god of nei ruben. Tnai is batel. The mice is kaim. The Gemara in Kedushin. Next page. The kim shekain iked the mitzvah alay. Hey chamrina reizum kudeshes with tnai batel. So how do we say that she's mekudesh and the tnai is batel? Kivan she tnai batel en mekudeshes the hachi asna. What's his question? Until now, he has not brought in an idea of shir and das. Because let's remember, l'chayra, the t'nai is not to say that I don't want the chalos to be chal. The chalos is chal already. I just don't want to be realized. Let's just put this in its proportionate place. Okay, what's his question? His question is not, hey, he may have made it bad t'nai, but listen, he didn't want to marry her. That's not what he asks. That's what he asks in 2 lines from now. In 2 lines from now, he asked that question. He asked afterwards, so it's mamash not a t'nai. That's the answer to this question. Now, if the question was, he doesn't want to get married her, how's that an answer? That doesn't answer anything. No, that was not the question. The question was, l'chayra, it shouldn't be chal the kedushin. It's the name of Shamaisa Batel keeping she's the kach beferish. That's a question of Bashir and Das. So if you look carefully, the Ramban asks 2 questions. The second question is, taking for granted that Masna Masha Kosab Torah is a chisorin of Tnai God of Negeruben, the equivalent of Tnai Kodim Lamaisim, the Bishlichis, and all these different Agadoras, he still doesn't understand. Why is the din that if this is Tnai's batel, but why is the Kedushin chal? The man said before, I do not want to marry you if this doesn't happen. That's the second question of the Ramban. What's the first question of the Ramban? The first question of the Ramban, which he answers that what? It's not Kibnei God of Reuven. It is that question, and only that question, which the Kasha, the Balei HaTosfos, and Ksubas Vav. They don't even ask the second question. Here, let's look at Taisus and Ksubas and Vav. Taisus and Ksubas and Vav. Etc. And he explains that you have this night kafel v'tema. Im kain amahi mekudeshes. Harei hisna befeirush she'im yel alav sher ksus v'ayna she'ena mekudeshes. Ve'ein loimer d'lekach mekudeshes fi mekadsha menashe timchol. This is an answer which the Ramban gives later. I don't want to go into it now. Okay, he walks away from that answer. We'll see the Ramban inside why he would. So what's the question? What is the kasha of Tosfos? What's the kasha? You said tonight bottle. What do you want? And what's the answer of Tosfos? And for Tosfos, if you go down to the wide lines, the first wide line, v'omer ri, the e lav the alfina tnai ve'godu bnei Ruven havi amina the shum tnai eina mevatel samaisa afilu lo yiskayim b'soif ha'maisa kayam. Hello? If the question was, but that's not what he wanted, what kind of answer is this? Makes no sense. He clearly never asked the question if that's not what he wanted. So what was his question? What's the question of the Balei HaTosfos? What's the first question of the Ramban? Which is the question of the Balei HaTosfos? And he actually says an answer similar to the Balei HaTosfos. He says, "Chishon of Bnei God of Bnei Ruben." But then he asks another question. And the reason that's why he started by, you know why? That's the basis of the second question. First of all, we need to like coffee. He tries to tell you not like the Goinim, not like the Rambam, not like the Rif. Number one. That's why Taishmus is doing it. The Ramban is bringing that for there's extra goodness sakes. How do you know he doesn't want different possibilities? He says, I'd like this to happen. If not, I don't mind. That's why you need to couple, right? So everybody to clarify. Well, then I really know he doesn't want this. That's the basis of the second question. What's the first question? What's the first question which had an answer? It's not tonight they go to Bnei Reuben. What's the difference? The second question is after he says that, he says, because the first question was answered. It's not going to go to Bnei Reuben. Even though the first question is answered, we still have a question. Why would this be an Afagav? It's meaningless. It's irrelevant. Why do you tell me Afagav that Meir has brown eyes? Ramban does not say narishkeit. It means this was it, and this is taka the answer of the Re. You have to see the purpose of the Re. That's taka the answer of the Balei HaTosfos. The answer of the Balei HaTosfos, if you don't care, because what? Because it's not Negod over Reuben. Did you see the Tosfos in Ksubis? Okay, so that's the answer. Because you don't have, because he already had an answer, and that answer is not good. That means he's going a step after Tosfos and Ksubis. After Tosfos and Ksubis, he still has a question. After that teretz, he still has a kasha. This kid's driving me nuts. No, it can't be. If that's an answer, why is this a question? How do you understand what you just read? He brings it. What's? I'm going to help you. Afagav means although you could answer my question by giving this answer, yet I have a problem. Now, that's how you have to count. Afagav, although you could answer my question by giving this answer, and it's true, he doesn't argue it, you could answer that, but I still have a question. Now, that doesn't mean it's the same question. It means because that's the old question. So there are two questions here. Or you want to call it, it's one question with two levels to it. What are we playing semantics here? At the end of the day, there was a question which had an answer if they go to Bnei Reuben, and then there's a follow-up question or revealing another dimension of the question. You can call it whatever you want. What you're going to see in the language, just before I go further. Okay, this is how I learned. Now, what does he mean? Kabbalah Zman. Even though the second part, which is here, not tonight, we don't know. The Rabban have told us that. I don't know what you're talking about. Can you explain carefully? What's the first question? What was the first question? Just one question. When he first started, what was his question? The question is the same question. What's his question? So then what's got Bnei Reuben? Meaningless. I know what you're talking about. It is a T'nai. It is a T'nai, but he's a Meshayir. Every T'nai is a Shir. Every Almanas is a Shir. What's Almanas? So, and that is a T'nai. No, but he said it's not the Bnei Reuben equals it's a bad T'nai. He doesn't say, he doesn't knock it away. He doesn't, no one said that. That's not true. There's no reason, but it doesn't say that it's Daimel if they go to Bnei Reuben. You need to go to Bnei Reuben. Why wouldn't you need to go to Bnei Reuben? What? Almanas? Yeah, why? No, because okay. Let me talk. The answer is a davar pashut. What did Tosfos mean? Forget what you want to say. Why did you understand Tosfos? And Tosfos' answer is not going to be Reuben. How did you understand Tosfos' kasha? You didn't. You didn't see it in Tosfos. Or you saw it, I know you saw it. Like Reader's Digest in the dentist's office. You're waiting to get your tooth pulled. With the music, will put you asleep. You didn't see the Tosfos. You want to see the Tosfos, you would ask that question. It's a bisa b'kutra. You have your phones, I don't have mine, but if you have your phones, look at a Ritva on Kiddushin. I need someone's phone because I don't have mine here. Is that a Ritva Kiddushin? What's that Ritva? Huh? So open up a writ for Kedushin. You test some of base. Do you have it? You have it. I sent it to you before. Do you have it, Kiva? Pass it on. Oh, goodness. Let's read the language of the writ for Kedushin. This is most rough. This is the right column, the last of our mass. Chutanya idach hameches bitay. The pasuk imay al minash lo yaed. Usually, when you saw Nama Ivriya, the buyer is supposed to be miyayed, the lady girl, and marry her. The Gemara says, "Masna masha kosa b'tayru l'mar meir tnai kayim." But Tanya Emma Isha Amnas, Amnas Shenachal Sheksus Foina in Kadesh with night bottle. What does bottle mean? Night bottle. So there it's what? Pirish. I forgot the time Baalma in this battle at night. In this battle at Meister. When does that happen? Tnaim Baalma. I like the what he's saying. Tnaim Baalma. You see the language? All the normal Tnaim. If this battle at night, this battle at Meister. Where exactly is there such a reality? Hasam who bitnai she'ef shelekaimai. Avo bitnai she'ef shelekaimai and el kematik bidvorim. He's quoting Rabbeinu Tam. Now, what's his question? Where is there such a? Show me the precedent that he's taking for granted. Afal gav the bitnoim be'alma in this battle at night, this battle ha'maisim. How do you read this? Bitnoim be'alma. Where in the case of lack of taikafel? You know it's not that way. It's a Fusha Mishnah not that way. So what does he mean? Fusha Mishnah, Samachal for Kedushin. Call it Naishem, they go to ruin the mice is kaim times bottle. And here it says what? The mice is not this bottle, ha-mice. What is he talking about, this Rabbi Don Vidal of Seville? He must have been a barber. No? Did you read it? You have to read. You can't make this mistake. Here, you can take it to Kiva. Read. Do me a favor, read it. Don't make a mistake. It's not good to make mistakes. You know, it says here, read the Medrash. I want to tell you something. David, I want to tell you something good. You know, I'm not doing purpose. I'm telling you a good thing. What was the Chet of the Meraglim? So we know that in Eicha, there's a perik there where it says first the psukim of Pei and then the pasuk of Ayin. And the Chazal say, why in that parak? They say that the psukim start with Pei and then Ayin is because we reminded them of Meraglim, Shekikidmu PM Le'eneim. First they said, we'll look it up later. They made it up with their mouth instead of reflecting what the text says. Just, I don't want anybody to be chaytim the chayt of the Meraglim, which is Hikdimu Pei La'ayin. The Pei is supposed to be a kli to express what the Ayin saw. It's not supposed to tell the ayin what it sees. What does batel mean in this context? That's all. It seems it is. It seems it is. And you know what? That's the and that's the first question of the Ramban. That's simple. Once you get used to seeing the shyness of Rishonim, they all use the same language in the same context, you suddenly